Hey YouTube, time to talk about sourdough bread. I have a quick, shorter recipe for sourdough that makes a wonderful ciabatta, sort of a loose, soft bread that's easy to make. So this is a great recipe to try if you've never done sourdough or you don't want to do a 2-day process with your sourdough bread. Try this one and see how it goes for you. So I'm going to get an apron and I'll get the rest of my ingredients together and we'll check it out. Okay, so this is a fairly easy recipe, and I am going to be starting with water, and I'll put the full recipe either at the end of the video or in the description down below. We're going to be using a stand mixer, and I'm actually cutting this recipe in half because I don't need 2 giant loaves of bread. We've got water in the mixer, and we've got some of my sourdough starter that I've had sourdough starter for years and years. That's a whole other video and a whole other topic, but if you have sourdough starter, you know what I mean. And if you're here, you must have it, right? And then this also has a little bit of yeast, probably because it's a short recipe for a 1-day process, so we are going to add a little bit of yeast. Basically, I'm going to add all of the flour that this recipe requires right into this mix. And we're just going to get this combined together with a spatula, and we'll fit it with a dough hook here as soon as we get it mixed up. I'm just going to use the spatula right here at first just to kind of combine it and get that mixed together. We go ahead and put on the dough hook, and we're going to mix this at medium speed for 6 minutes. So after 6 minutes, I go ahead and turn off the mixer, and you can take it off the hook if you want, but we're going to be mixing more stuff into this dough. We're going to let that rest in the bowl for 20 minutes, and what I have here is just a little bit of water left in the measuring cup. We're going to add a little bit of milk and some olive oil. So we combine that together, and we're going to come back and add that to the dough once the salt is incorporated. This is sat for 20 minutes, and we're going to just add some salt and mix this into this dough with the dough hook for about 2 more minutes. So we've incorporated the salt, and now on very low, we're going to add the water and milk and olive oil mixture. We're just going to do that very slowly with the mixer on low until it's incorporated. You don't want to add it too fast or it'll just slosh around all over. So I'm going to do that very slowly. All right, and you can see that this has gotten significantly wetter from the dough that we started with. So what I'm going to do now is turn this mixer up to high-ish, probably not all the way high, and we're going to run it on medium-high to high for 4 minutes, and then it's going to go into a rest mode for 2 to 2.5 hours. That is a workout for a small mixer. This is a 5-quart KitchenAid, but look at how glorious and smooth this looks. So we're going to get it off the dough hook, and it's a fairly sticky, wet dough. So this makes a very loose, wet dough. So I'm just going to cover this with some saran wrap. I like the press and seal stuff. We're going to cover that, and then I'll probably actually put a towel over it too. And I'm going to set a timer for 2 hours, and we'll come back and check that in 2 hours and see how it's doing. It should have doubled. See where we're at. So it should be quite a bit higher than it is in the bowl, and it should have doubled in bulk. So let's see what happens in 2 hours. And this took considerably more than 2 hours for me to get any sort of rise out of this, because I think my sourdough was a little bit tired and not as active as it should have been, but we're going to go ahead and work with it. So we dust the surface, and you're just going to pull this very soft dough out of your bowl, and we want to have it fall just kind of in a rough oblong onto this flour dusted surface. We're going to just kind of get it laid out, and I'm not going to fuss with shaping it or doing anything else to it at this point. We're going to just put some more flour on top and give it a little dusting of flour, and then I'm going to put a towel over it and let it rest here for 20 more minutes. After the 20 minutes is up, I'm going to just carefully dust it again, dust this piece of parchment, and then transfer this loaf over to the baking sheet. And this is where you kind of want to, watch a little bit on your shaping as far as the 8 by 10 maybe dimension, and the 1.5-inch depth is again more what you're looking for rather than any length. Then take 2 fingers and about 2-inch intervals you want to push all the way down through this, like down to the parchment. We're going to cover that with a towel again, and we're going to just let it sit and proof again at room temperature for 2 more hours. Preheat your oven to 500 degrees, and I like to put a tray of ice cubes in to provide a little bit of steam. We're going to do this an hour before baking. Uncover your dough, and then I just put another piece of parchment over the top of it and carefully kind of sandwich it together in one motion. You're going to want to flip it over really quick, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it's going to be all right. There you go. And then you're going to repeat the dimple process with your fingers at every 2 inches along this side of the bread, like that. And we're going to go ahead and put this in the oven, turn the oven down, and bake these for 25 minutes. At the end of 25 minutes, you're going to actually pull it out and flip it over and bake it upside down for another 5 to 8 minutes. Once the loaf is nice and golden brown, you can take it out of the oven and put it on a rack to cool. And if you're like me, you want to cut it open while it's hot, but you're not supposed to do that. So let it sit until it's all the way cool, and then you can cut it open and enjoy it. I hope this inspires you to try this easy sourdough bread for yourself. If you've never done sourdough, this is a great one to start with because it's kind of hard to mess it up, and there's a lot more complicated recipes you can move on to after this. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.